Hello and welcome to the Money Train. The Union budget is just a week away. It's a very important budget. Of course, every budget is important, but given the world scenario, it's even more now. World going into recession is a known fact, not news anymore. What is not yet known is how hard it's going to hit us. But the budget is not just an economic plan. It's a political statement also. So we expect some bragging about how India is going to steer away from recession. Of course, there will be some new project announcements which will take us to the wonderland of the 5 trillion worth economy. And there will be naturally claims about success of the plans executed so far. But sadly, that's not the real picture. Our unemployment is moving up and up. Inflation has devastated the majority of the people. And our growth rate is not picking up enough. Well, what I made just now is also a sweeping statement. So I will explain in detail. Ever since the COVID, 1 crore 40 lakh jobs have been lost. 96 lakh women and 45 lakh men got added to the unemployment lot, making it above 5 crore. Yes, more than 5 crore is the number of unemployed people we have in this country who are eligible to do a job. The latest figure puts unemployment at 8.3% of the total population in December, which is the highest in the last 14 months. Data is from the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. But it was discarded by the Union government as a fancy figures of a private agency, an imagination. But that's the joke, because the same organization's data have been quoted and used by the Reserve Bank of India and Finance Ministry a number of times in the past. Okay, so leave it. So coming back to the statistics. The job loss hit the youth is more harder than any other section of the people, 20%. For sectoral shares, the manufacturing industry lost 60 lakh jobs. Service sector lost more than 1 crore jobs, while agriculture saw an increase of 50 lakh jobs, compensating some of the job losses, but still the figure is huge. So what happened to the Prime Minister's announcement of filling up 10 lakh government jobs? Remember those announcements and the fanfare? The announcement was in June and 6 months have passed. Either the PM's announcement didn't take off in practice or the unemployment crisis is even worse. Time to hit the panic button. And now to the inflation story. Ever since the COVID, inflation was rising up, breaking the 6% barrier in most of the months. Government raised the interest rates to check the money inflow into the economy, but in vain. And at last, in the last month, after so many trial and error, in December, it has eased a bit. The Union government immediately started dancing and bragging about the success. But the inflation rate coming down doesn't mean that the prices have gone back to their original position, isn't it? It only means that the price is not rising as it was before. So what's there to celebrate?
An inflation rate in India is not comparable to what it is in, say, the UK or the US or other major countries, because in those countries, most people are in the organized sector and they get some compensation for the inflation that takes place. So the incomes don't fall much. But in India, since 94% are in the unorganized sector and they don't have the bargaining power to ask for a higher wage, so their incomes decline. So in India, as I've been saying, a 5% rate of inflation is worse than, say, 8 or 9 or 10% in the UK or in the US. So we shouldn't compare these inflation rates.
The inflation and job loss is creating havoc in the society. What happened to the big announcements from Make in India to the latest production-linked incentive schemes? What about the huge corporate tax cuts the government offered to the corporates some years back? Where are the jobs they were supposed to create? All the capital investments the government made for building roads and other infrastructure, hoping that private sector will also come in, hasn't motivated them. They are not at all interested. A recent study by the Center for New Economic Studies shows that the private share of fixed capital formations has come down to 29%. In fact, the last 1 decade, their investment in the capital expenditure is very low. And now it's even worse. And why is that? Because the private players know that the consumers are not spending. They don't have enough money. They don't have confidence to spend whatever they have with them also. India has a serious demand crisis, but the government is trying hard to motivate not the consumers but the suppliers with more tax cuts, more government spending in infrastructure, and so on. In fact, the reason for inflation is not that there is so much money in the system. Actually, it's the opposite. And there are supply bottlenecks which are beyond the control of the India government. It is happening internationally.
Why are the supply bottlenecks there? Because of the international situation, because of zero COVID policy in China. A lot of things are in short supply. The Ukraine war, because of which fertilizer, food, metals, and various other things, they have been in short supply. Energy was in short supply, so prices rose very sharply. So these are supply bottlenecks. So raising interest rate does not actually stop the war in Ukraine, does not stop the zero COVID policy in China. Therefore, raising interest rate, all it can do is cool down the economy and the rate of growth will drop, but inflation will not come under control.
So the finance ministry is barking at the wrong tree. And who is affected? When the money circulation slows down, the economy will slow down further. More shops will be closed, more jobs will be lost.
The overall sharp rebound and recovery of the
Budget after budget, union government is helping the corporates, the big producers. For a change this time, the minister should help the consumers. First of all, bring down the fuel prices. The international prices have fallen 40% from $130 per barrel to around 80. And we also get some oil from Russia really cheap. So bring down the petrol and diesel prices. Will she? Another thing, ever wondered why big companies are growing while the economy is not performing enough? The business volume is transferring from the unorganized sector to the organized sector. In simple terms, from your neighborhood shops to shopping malls and to e-commerce companies, from small entrepreneurs to bulk producers. But more than 90% of the Indian workforce don't work in these big offices, malls or factories. They are in the unorganized sector. Yes, the 90% belong there. The laborers, the street vendors, self-employed people like carpenters, plumbers, mechanics, the small-scale manufacturers. Equip them with money and material. Your economy will revive. We call this individually small players MSMEs or micro, small and medium enterprises. The union government does have schemes for them, to be fair. But there is a problem. A micro enterprise is far different from small enterprise, and that small enterprise is different from the medium ones. You have to differentiate between them.
A company which is doing 2 lakhs a turnover a month can be an MSME. An organization which is doing 20 crores a month turnover can also be called an MSME. This is not the level playing ground. The data of the Ministry of MSME says 98% of the industries are falling under the micro entrepreneur. So, what the first submission to the madam is, please create a ministry for micro entrepreneurs so that they can dedicatedly cater to the needs of these people who are at large, who are not under the regular radar of the government, who are not given any support services so far. We may talk about ECGL scheme, which was given originally as 3 lakh crore as a loan and credit guarantee scheme, and then it was scaled to up 5 lakh crore as on date. But the fact remains, none of them have reached the category of people whom I am talking about. The eligibility criteria has made sure only those who performed as a normal account as on February 2020 were eligible to avail that.
So when the Reserve Bank of India raises the repo rates that increase the loan rates, it's the micro enterprises that suffer. More will shut shop. When the highest employment generating sector is affected, more people will lose jobs. That's what's going to happen in the coming months also. Business will transfer to the organized sector, mostly corporates. More islands of filthy rich will be created in the sea of poor. Let the finance minister do all the bragging and chest thumping about the past achievements and future projects. But for a change, she must announce steps to support the consumers, the common man, and the micro enterprises run by the common people. Step up spending in health sector from the frugal 2% of the GDP. Even Brazil spends 4% of its GDP, Widen the rural employment scheme to urban areas. Increase the allocation money from 73,000 crore. Bring down the fuel charges. Because what India is facing is a demand crisis, absolutely not a supply crisis. But some may be skeptical about finding the money. From where will this huge amount of money for all these welfare measures come? India is not that much a welfare state, but there are resources. To begin with, reinstate the corporate tax cuts, which the union government slashed, hoping to boost the private investment, and of course, which didn't happen. Tax the super rich. Like I said before, India is a sea of poor with a number of filthy rich islands. The super rich of the country hold about 3,800 lakh crore as wealth, according to some estimate. I hope you know the data about how the rich grew richer even during the pandemic. How Adani at the same time climbed up the ladder of the global rich to attain the third position. All those international study reports about wealth inequality, which paints India as one of the most unequal countries in the whole world. So there are ways.
A friend of ours who is a researcher on inequality, in fact, gives this astounding figure that if the richest person in India decides to donate all his wealth and distributes rupees 2,000 rupees per minute, then it would take almost 10,000 years to exhaust his wealth. The top 1% holds nearly 60% of the net worth of all private individuals in India. Now here, if we put a 2% wealth tax on this top 1%, it would yield more than double what the government claims to have spent till last April on free food grains given to the poor during COVID. Now, if one adds a 50% inheritance tax to this volume, it would yield a total of about 18 lakh crore rupees. So this would be enough to generate enough revenues for the government to be able to spend on food security for all, for universal non-contributory pensions for the elder, to meet the decades-old demand of 6% of GDP to be spent on health and education, and a robust rural and urban Narega. So ultimately, it boils down to a very, very simple fact. Whether we want a government that serves the rich, or we want a government that works for the people.
India is in crossroads. The path it chooses will define the future for many years to come. Not just the future, the present life of millions of citizens depend on it. Let's hope the finance minister has got a wind of things. It's time to help the minions and not the giants, at least for a change. That's all from us. Goodbye till we meet again.